I'm coming to slowly realize that the process of producing your best writing is less about adding things to the equation and more about taking them away. That it's not about holding on to ideas, but rather letting them go. There are some ideas here that are counterintuitive at first, but I'm hoping they will make more sense as we explore them together and as I blather about them over the course of the next dozen or so minutes. Desperately clinging to this idea of producing good writing is probably not beneficial to that very pursuit. The more you want to produce something good, the more attached you are to the idea of bringing your novel to life the way you've always dreamed of, potentially the less likely you are to actually succeed. To get the clearest view of the stars, you need a telescope whose lens is not covered in mud. To write the novel you want to write, you likewise need a mind that is not covered in mud. To get to the bottom of this and de-mud the telescope, as the young people say, we'll need to talk about desperation, and also the place where your best writing actually comes from. We really need to start by talking about desperation. I can't emphasize this enough. I really need you to understand that desperation is the first thing that we need to talk about. I'm using desperation here as an example because it's the most extreme case of this kind of thought process. But even if you aren't completely desperate, you may still encounter some problems. At first glance, desperation would seem like the best way to get stuff. I mean, when you are desperate for something, you're willing to work to your limit, to put in a ton of effort. The term desperation implies that you want something the most, that you are highly motivated to get it, that you need it, that you desire it to the nth degree. And I think for acquiring certain things, desperation can work quite well. Desperation will make you scour the desert looking for water. You will eat slime off of rocks if you're desperate for food. You'll fight tooth and nail against a black bear if you're in a desperate fight for survival. Can you stop? Desperation tends to work quite well for simpler needs like food or water, but for more complex achievements, desperation is usually not an effective strategy. Relationships, career advancement, creative fulfillment are usually not attained when pursued with desperation. Have you ever been on a date with someone who's really desperate for the date to go well? Or perhaps you yourself have been on a date where you're desperate for it to go well? I think we're having a good time. Are you having a good time? It's important to me that you're having a good time. I really think you should be having a good time. I think this is fun. Would you tell me if you weren't having fun? Please tell me you're having fun. Should we start laughing? Laughing is fun. It's the same thing with something like a job interview or any other kind of social situation. Someone who's desperate, someone who's gripping on to this thing with white-knuckled fury, it's kind of just a turn-off. Someone in this situation is not present in the task they are engaged in. They are focused solely on how that task is going to turn out, to the point that their attention is entirely elsewhere. Somewhat paradoxically, they are so concerned about how the thing they are focused on is going to turn out that they have no concern for actually doing the thing well. They are using up all of their focus on the anxiety and worry around the task they are trying to complete. Desperation results in an emotional clouding, a lack of clear thinking. This is why there are so many scams and wrongdoers out there who focus on finding desperate people to take advantage of. Desperation does not lead you to good action, and it makes you vulnerable to being taken advantage of. Now let's bring this back to writing. Now, you may not be desperate to write a good novel, but my guess is that idea, that goal, that longing to do so is weighing at least to one degree or another on your mind. At first glance, you may feel that the best way to produce your best writing is to bring all of those hopes and aspirations and goals and desires along for the writing process, that you should be thinking about these things as you're writing, that thinking about these things, carrying them with you, will lead to better writing. After all, that's the reason you're writing in the first place. You're writing because you have a great novel that you want to come to fruition. You're writing because you want to get published. You're writing because you want people to see how brilliant you are. Whatever it is, and it's different for everybody, but your reasons for writing probably come from some kind of a place like that. Now we get to the crux of the issue. What happens when you bring all of that stuff, all of those concerns, all of those desires? What happens when you bring all of that with you to the actual writing process, when you are sitting down in front of your project? Any desire has two parts to it. There's the want for the object of the desire, but there's also the fear that you can't or won't be able to attain it. Your desire to write a great novel, a novel that lives up to your expectations, is one side of a coin that, if inverted, will reveal the fear and doubts you have surrounding not fulfilling that desire. It is your preoccupation with this fear and doubt that will tarnish your writing process. You will second guess yourself. The ideas will not flow as easily. Whatever creative energy you have will be hampered by the worry that you don't have enough creative energy. The way to ruin your writing is to be so desperate for it to go well that you completely negate any chance of it going well. The very desire that put you in the chair is the very thing that is sabotaging your writing. Now, an important thing to note here is this is not about becoming apathetic or not caring about your writing. There's a subtle nuance here, but apathy or not caring means not engaging with the work. It's a desire to create distance between the work and you. Desperation, or bringing all of your fears and doubts about your ability to achieve what you want to achieve, also drains energy, but in a slightly different way. Any artist who's lost themselves in their work has given up on these desires. Not completely, but in the moment that they're executing on their art, they aren't thinking about these things. They are not apathetic either. The work is getting all of their energy. That's what this is about. That's what matters. Apathy is not putting energy into your work. All of the goals you have, your ambitions, your fears about criticism, the comparisons you make to other writers, the doubts you have about your own talent or your own skills, all of those are things that will dam up the flow of your own creativity. These suck energy and attention away from you. Your uncertainty, the fear that you have, is fundamentally about a lack of faith in yourself, a lack of faith that you can produce something amazing without all of these voices in your mind. It's like if you've ever been climbing up a ladder to go onto a roof or something and there's someone on the ground shouting at you, make sure you don't fall, and you just want to shout back at them, I know not to fall off the ladder. That person shouting at you is not helping. They're telling you something you already know, but they're distracting and taking energy away from the thing you're trying to do. You know what you need to do to make a piece of writing. You know what goes into it. The worry and the what ifs and the comparison, all of that stuff is stuff that you don't need. We are all learning through this process. If at the end of a writing session, what you've written doesn't live up to your expectations, then you will need to learn some more. You will need to practice more. When the fear and the worry become too strong, when we become so desperate that the slime on rocks that is your writing starts to look appetizing, that's when we start to stagnate. This is when we start to get defensive about our writing, we start making excuses, we refuse to improve, because improving means abandoning the fear that comes along with the doubts that we have about our skill. It's only when you let those things go, when you accept where you are and what you have to do, that your true abilities will come through. Your best writing will come when you aren't stressed about these other things. Your best writing will come when you bring as little as possible to your writing session. Thanks for watching. I'd love to know what you think about this in the comments down below, and I will see you next time.